That cabinet is at Skills USA.
Oh, like the whole cabinet was new?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Potter brought it over.
Got it.
Because he's leaving.
Oh, I heard he got some job, but he didn't know if he was going to take it. I guess he's taking it.
As far as I know, because he's moving all his Skills USA stuff over.
That's what that email, huh? You kind of did a lot of it anyway, right?
Yeah. Man, nobody's here today. I was eating a donut. That's why I didn't have a mask on. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Two things. A new essential question is up on the board, and a higher order thinking question. You will also find these on the home page. So when you go to your homepage, this is what you're going to see, and the new essential question and higher order thinking question will be up there as well. I was really lenient on grading of those two things this time because it is kind of new. And I hope to have a rubric up for this next one. Make sure you are putting these in some type of notebook. Again, I've got the composition notebooks over here. If you need one, just get one, because at the end of the semester, you will be turning that in. So if you're just putting it on paper, make sure you're going to have some kind of folder to put it in. Or if you're typing it, make sure you have the ability to print it and then put it in a folder. Okay. So yeah, that's that. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So the integumentary system, this is our skin. This just so happens to go right along with the very first essential question. And the essential question is, what are the three layers of the integumentary system? There they are. The epidermis, the dermis, and the hypodermis. Epidermis, you can see, is the very top layer. The dermis is the middle, and then the hypodermis is the bottom. Now, all of this yellow stuff, and I don't think I mentioned this in our earlier chapters, but anytime you see yellow in a book, it's always going to represent fat, okay? So this is adipose tissue. All right. So the epidermis is the outermost layer of the skin. It is made up of 5 layers. So don't get that confused with the 3 layers of the integumentary system, okay? The epidermis has 5 layers, and we're going to learn about the stratum corneum, which is the outermost layer, and then the stratum germinativum, which is the innermost layer, okay? Sometimes you're going to see this as the stratum basale. It is avascular, my little pointer, avascular. A means without, vas is vessels. So it has no blood supply whatsoever, which is why I can take my finger now and scratch my skin right here and it doesn't bleed, because I'm scratching my epidermis. Now it might get red, but it's not going to bleed because there are no vessels there. Now, if you scratch deep enough, then you're going to get into the dermis, where you have blood vessels and capillaries. And the epidermis is made up of epithelial cells. Okay. All right. So the first layer, again, we're talking about the epidermis. Remember, there are 5 layers. We're only going to talk about 2. The outermost layer, which is the stratum corneum, and then the innermost layer, which is the stratum germinativum. The stratum corneum, excuse me, this is this basically dead skin cells. This is one of the ways that our skin protects our body, because we have so many layers of this stratum corneum. And it's basically just dead keratinized skin. Keratin is a waterproof covering. Now I'm getting way too ahead, so let me stop there. When I go like this, so when I was scratching myself earlier, I'm kind of throwing my stratum corneum at Ben and over there at Rachel, okay? Dust is made up of dead skin cells. When you see cobwebs in the corner, you know, that just happens, you know, to be dead skin cells sitting up there. When you sleep in your bed, you actually, you know, the reason why you need to wash your sheets often is because it's got full of dead skin cells. So you can see how bacteria, now this is just, you know, only showing about 3 layers, but it's a little bit thicker than that. Bacteria would have to kind of squeeze its way through here to try to get down all the way in here to cause any kind of infection. So that's how our skin is able to protect us from infection. Now, the keratin, this is it basically replaces the cytoplasm of the cells down here. Keratin is a waterproof covering, which is why if we were to drop a drop of water on our hand, it would just roll off. We can jump into the pool and we don't swell up, okay? It's because of that keratin we have in our skin. If you've ever, ladies, looked at lotion, I know, Benjamin, you probably haven't looked at it, but you'll see that, you know, some lotions have keratin in it. It's because that's what's in our skin. Now, the stratum corneum is thickest on the palms of our hands and the soles of our feet. Think about it. What's one thing you guys, since this COVID came out, learned that you're supposed to do often? Wash your hands. All right. And that's because our hands touch all kinds of stuff, right? So isn't it kind of neat how that stratum germinativum is thickest on our hands? Because we touch so much stuff that if it wasn't thick like that, we could potentially get infected. I'm just, you know, I'm just saying how our bodies are made. It's kind of neat. Anyways, if you ask your mom or dad, if anybody works outside a lot, what are they going to have on their hands? What? Calluses, yes. I was going to say, Sadie, what does Matthew have on his hands? I guarantee you he's got blisters. They're not blisters, calluses. And that's because he's holding that bat all the time, or he's a pitcher, pitching that ball. So right-handed, left-handed. So I bet his right hand has a lot more blisters than his left hand. But so working with our hands a lot, we develop, you know, that stratum corneum just gets thicker. Ladies, again, Benjamin, you're the only guy in here today, so you know, but ladies, you know, you've seen those old ladies with those dry, cracked heels, you know, and sometimes maybe, and you guys may be too young for it yet, but you go and get a pedicure done. And you do that so that your heels are nice and smooth, right? Okay, what they are doing is they're actually, you know, they take that little, like, whatever it is, file, and they're filing off this stratum corneum. So the stratum corneum is thickest on the palms of our hands and the soles of our feet. Again, first line of defense against bacteria. It's got to go all the way through all these layers to get into here. Now, the stratum corneum is constantly being replaced by what is called the stratum germinativum. So again, there are 5 layers to the epidermis. We're learning about this top layer, and then we go through 4, 3, and then we get to this one here. It is also called the stratum basale. All right, so Don't get confused by me saying germinativum, but you're reading basale down here. So the stratum germinativum being this bottom one down here, this is the reproductive layer. This is the one that is constantly pushing up cells. And if you look at it, you can see how they kind of look cuboidal a little bit. And as they move up, they start to flatten out. And especially when you get up in here, okay? And that's just because there's so many cells involved there. Let's see, it allows the epidermis to repair itself. So earlier in the week, or this weekend, I had cut my arm here. And all I've got are 3 little pieces of scab. And I can probably just kind of knock those off right now. But that's because my stratum germinativum is reproducing itself and I'm getting new skin there. What the germinativum has in it are these cells called melanocytes. Anytime you see CYTE on the end of a term, it's some type of a cell. Okay, cyte means cell. In this case, a melanocyte contains skin pigment. The skin pigment is called melanin. So here's a melanocyte right here, and you can see it, this cell, how squamous, basically they're flat and irregular. This one he kind of goes all up in there, and it's a little bit of a darker color. That's called a melanocyte. This is a keratinocyte. Basically, the keratin has replaced the cytoplasm down in here, so that again, we get that waterproof covering. So a little bit more about melanin. Melanin, again, is the skin pigment contained in melanocytes. It's real easy to get those 2 words confused. Now, melanin can be black, brown, or yellow. Now, I am Mexican, American Indian, and Irish. My oldest daughter I wouldn't say she's real pale or anything. She gets a little bit of a tan, but she has strawberry blonde hair. My youngest daughter doesn't have my skin color, but she will get dark, and she has hair color the color of Aiden's. One has green eyes, the other has blue eyes. That all comes from the Irish side of my family. So Rachel, do you know what your heritage is?
I know my dad's side, that I think it's a little tiny bit of Native American, and then European and Scottish.
Oh, okay. All right. Because you and your sister both have the same coloring and the hair color. So I was thinking more kind of, I guess the Native American is what is giving you that color. Benjamin, do you know what your heritage is?
Actually, no.
Okay. Aiden, do you know what yours is? Irish and Italian. So do you have some siblings or cousins that are a little bit darker skin? Okay, that would be the Italian. No?
I know a little bit. I'm a little bit of everything, and a little bit of 40% Nigerian, I think, 10% German, 10% German, 5% Middle Eastern. I don't know really.
Did you do one of those DNA things?
Yeah.
I've got one. I've got to turn mine in. In first period, there was a young lady, and she's half black, half white, and I'm darker than she is. So all of it is the content of our melanin, how much melanin we have, and then how we're exposed to it out in the sun. So if you were to take Benjamin, okay, if Benjamin and a brother, say we take Benjamin and we move him down to the equator, and we take his brother, do you have a brother? Okay, we take his brother and we move him up to northern Alaska. 30 years from now, Benjamin's going to be nice and tan. Okay, he's probably going to have my skin tone, whereas his brother is going to be very pale. Okay, I don't want to say white, but very pale. The reason being is because Benjamin, being at the equator, is exposed to a lot of sun. So one, his melanin's going to get darker than it would where here in North Carolina. And that's a protection so that it also protects us somewhat against skin cancer. So we have a little bit of sunscreen, and that's from the melanin. Whereas his brother, who lives up north in northern Canada, because they don't get a lot of sun up there, they need to have their skin as light as possible so they can soak in the sun. What do we get? What vitamin do we get from the sun? Vitamin D, yes. So in Benjamin's case, who lives at the equator, he's getting plenty of it. He doesn't need any more, and he needs to protect himself from, his skin is doing the natural thing. Whereas his brother up north needs the vitamin D because he's not getting a lot of sunlight. So his melanin, has not darkened. So in a generation, the color of the skin can change. All right. So the more melanin you have, the darker skin. And then of course, where you live, the darker your skin is as well. These two young men, I don't know if they're true albinos, but they're really close. I'm thinking they're probably Swedish, or they live in Finland. They're very light skinned, blonde hair, and these like crystal clear blue eyes. If a person was a true albino, which means they have no skin pigment, what color eyes would they have? Nope. Reddish. Okay. It would be reddish because there's no skin pigment there, so there's no color, so it's basically clear, and what we're seeing are the blood vessels, which makes me think these guys just live up north somewhere. Okay, freckles are patches of melanin. Albinism is the absence of skin pigment. Now, papillae, please do not get this confused with the next slide, which I'm going to talk about as papilla. Papillae are ridges in the stratum germinativum. So if we look at this slide, this darker pink color here, that's your epidermis. And you can see, look at all those layers of that stratum corneum. The lighter pink is your dermis. So arising out of the dermis are these ridges called papillae. And what they give us is, one, fingerprints, but two, they help with any kind of resistance to slipping. We have a lot of them on our feet. And they also help with their friction ridges, which help with our grip. Now, yes, we have muscles which help with our grip, but those papillae help as well. So these are permanent ridges on our fingers, palms, and soles of our feet. All right, the dermis. This is where everything basically comes from. Now it does, like blood vessels come up through the subcutaneous, but everything is going to be found in that middle layer, which is the dermis. Now see these things right here? What are those? Humps. I just talked about them. The epidermal ridges, the papillae, yes, very good. So you can see it there when they pull it back. So that layer is your epidermis, and then this is your dermis. All right, appendages. These are things, appendages is stuff. It's the best way I can say it. One of the appendages coming out of our dermis is the hair. So what we have the very outermost layer of our hair is called the cuticle. Now we know cuticles on our nails, right? Okay, we're going to talk about that one in a second. Now, the cortex is basically, and this is, I thought I had gotten rid of this, but the cortex is the outer layer. Let's just remember the cortex is the outer layer. The medulla is the middle layer, is the inside layer. Cortex and medulla will follow us from this unit on. So when we talk about the brain and I say the cerebral cortex, what part of the brain do you think I'm talking about? Outer layer. Cortex is the outer layer. The medulla oblongata, of the brain is the, right, is inside. Okay, so the hair root, of course, is what is implanted in the skin. The part we see is the hair shaft. So all of our hair we see, that's hair shaft. Let's see. The hair follicle. So see how it kind of dimples in there? This little bulb-like thing, this cavity, is called the hair follicle. That is where the hair is implanted. The papilla, okay, papilla is single, is this tuft of tissue right here. It's a white tuft of tissue, and what it does is it nourishes the hair itself, because our hair is alive up to a certain point, and then it's dead. So all of this that we see, this is dead hair, okay? Some of it, as it grows longer, which is why we need to cut our hair often, is because it starts to split. That's just what dead hair does. All right, let's see. The erector pili muscle, this is the muscle right here. It attaches to this hair follicle. When we get cold, that erector pili muscle contracts, and what do we get? Goosebumps, correct. All right, the nail. Nail is made up of keratin. What did we say keratin was? It's a protein, and it's yes, waterproof covering. Very good. All right, so the plate is the part we can actually see. The matrix in the nail bed is the skin underneath this plate. The lunula, and we can look at our thumbs. That's a good place to look, and you'll see your lunula, which is this white crescent shape right there. The cuticle is the fold of tissue over the nail. Guys tend to kind of let their cuticles go, and they got all this extra skin growing on their nails. Ladies, we tend to push it back, or we go get manicures done. And I already told you the matrix is what's under it. The matrix actually goes, so our nail root goes into under our skin down in here, and the matrix kind of follows the nail root underneath there. All right, glands. We have two types. We have sweat glands and oil glands. The sudoriferous glands are our sweat glands. We have a large number of these in the palms of our hands, the soles of our feet, and under our arms, which is called the axilla region. We also have quite a bit on our forehead. Do you ever get in front of a crowd of people and have to talk and you start getting all sweaty? Okay. And then we have two types of sudoriferous glands, apocrine and eccrine. Eccrine go directly to the skin. So all coiled up down in here, and then it comes right out here to a pore. Whereas the apocrine is adjacent to the hair follicle. So it kind of, it's a sweat gland, and it goes to the hair follicle, and then the sweat comes out. The sebaceous gland is the oil producing gland, and that is this one right here. And it is right next, it attaches to the hair follicle. And this is what actually helps us to have, it lubricates our hair shaft and skin. Now, some people make too much oil, and the oil is called sebum. So then they get oily hair, okay? So like my daughter, my youngest, if she doesn't wash her hair every day, by the second day, her hair is just oily. Whereas my hair, because of the type of hair I have, I can go, a week without washing it. Because if I wash my hair too much, then it dries it out more. But I put conditioner in my hair every day. Otherwise, it would be real dry. Okay, so the oil that's produced by these sebaceous glands is called sebum. All right, and then our last slide is the subcutaneous layer. This is also called the hypodermal. Hypo meaning below, dermal is dermis. So this is our subcutaneous layer, this layer right here. It is made up mostly of adipose tissue. What is adipose tissue again? Fat cells, yes. It is sometimes called the superficial fasciae, and that's because right underneath here is a muscle. Now this is saying muscle, that's your erector pili muscle right there. But right underneath the subcutaneous layer is your muscle. It contains 1/2 of your body's fat cells, okay? So that's where a lot of our fat is held at. Although it looks like, I mean, yes, there are blood vessels running through it. Most of our blood vessels are in our dermis. Okay, so do I have any questions about what we just went over? Okay, anybody at home have questions? Oh, I've got somebody. We do have a note guide, but it's not for the structures. We have it for the functions and diseases. But this is what I did last period, and I'm going to leave it up to you guys. So we have, let me exit out of here. On Tuesday, we have this sheet right here is due Tuesday. That's not the one. Where'd it go? Is it here? Here it is. The integumentary system worksheet. This is due Tuesday. What we did in first period is we actually did this first part. So I'm going to leave it up to you guys as a group. Let me come back here so I can see everybody. And you guys can raise hands. So see, I'm going to raise my hand. Do you guys want to go over the first 16 of this worksheet that is due on Tuesday? 1, 2, 3. Okay, so everybody in my class does. What about you guys at home? I got 1 thumbs up. Anybody else? Now everybody has to take a question. So if you don't want to do it with the class, then I'm going to need you to leave, because I'm not going to give you the answers if you don't want to participate. So I'm taking it. If you don't leave, then you're going to do the questions. All right. So Ashlyn, number 1. Sadie, number 2. Aiden, 3. Benjamin, 4. Rachel, 5. Man, look at him just falling out over there. Okay, Mackenzie, I think you said you wanted to help. You were going to do some. Okay, so Mackenzie, number 6. Maya,
Miss Hudson.
are you going to stay? Tane, are you going to stay?
Miss Hudson.
I'm sorry. I don't know who.
I'm gonna stay.
Henry's going to say. Tane, you're going to stay?
Wait, Miss Hudson, I forgot what we're doing. I had to go to the bathroom, so I didn't hear what we're doing.
All right. So what we're doing is this sheet right here is due on Tuesday.
Okay.
And we are going to go through the first 16 as a class. So everybody will get 1 question. Do you want to stay and do it?
So we're working together to fill this worksheet out, basically?
Yes.
Or, oh, okay. All right, I'll stay.
Okay. Mackenzie, you said you're staying?
Yes.
Maya, you going to stay with us?
No, ma'am. I was actually about to log off.
Okay. And David, what about you? You going to stay with us?
Yeah, I'll be staying.
Okay. So